Are you coming back to school with me? We could have done it all so easily.
Hi, my name is Craig Thompson Wood. I'm your host on Teaching with Board Games. Here today, kicking it old school with Yahtzee by Hasbro. Now, Yahtzee has been around, I don't know how long. Maybe I'll put in the comment, I'll put a little note underneath right now how long it is. I'll have to look it up because I don't know off the top of my head. Been around since longer than I've been alive, that's for sure. And this game is still a classic. And when you look at it, it's got a lot of great things in it for teaching mathematics, especially. So I thought it was a great one to be included on the channel. I mean, I have actually been looking for this game for a while. What I have been doing is I've been looking for it in local thrift stores and things like that, because this is probably where a game you might be finding in a thrift store if you keep your eyes open for it. And so that would be where I'd recommend looking for it. I just haven't had any luck in finding it, or maybe it's been there and I haven't thought about it at the time. But anyways, be that as it may, this game I actually borrowed from a friend of mine. I was just there for a board gaming weekend, and my friend Kevin Hutchinson had loaned this to me. So thank you, Kevin, for this loaner. And in case you're not familiar with how to play Yahtzee, let me take you to the table and I'll give you a quick overview of how it's played. So when you open up your box of Yahtzee, this is pretty much what you're going to find inside. The game is very simple in its components. You have a dice cup, you have the pad with the score sheets. So there's a lot of score sheets on here, and you see it's nice too. They even make it so that you can score up to 6 games on one score sheet. And they will supply a pencil, but you can always supply your own 2 of that. As well as you can always, like I say, supply more dice, but you're going to be using 5 dice. Now, the rules of Yahtzee are quite simple. You simply roll the dice. And you use those to look at what you have and see what you can do with them. So you're looking for different things. So you have here on the top section, you have an upper section and you have a lower section. In the upper section, you're looking for sets. You know, how many 1s do you have? How many 2s? How many 3s? How many 4s, 5s, and 6s? You then add those together. So if here I have 2 1s. If I chose to use them now, I could say I'm putting 2 1s, so 1 plus 1 is 2. I'd put the 2s there. But what I'm seeing here is I have something more interesting, and down here it's not so much the currents of numbers. Here it's coming to the sets of numbers. So I have a 1, 2, 3, 4. So a 1, 2, 3, 4 gives me a small straight. So I have 4 numbers in a straight. So I already have 30 points. So that's great. That's a hard one to get, and I've already got it. Now what I can do, I can go for the large straight where I have all 5 dice. So if I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, so I'm going to re-roll this one. You are allowed 2 re-rolls during your turn. So I roll, and I get a 3. Doesn't help me. So I roll again, and I get a 6. Doesn't help me. So I would then just put in my 30 points here to indicate I had my large straight. Now, once I put that in, even if I roll a small straight, if I roll a small straight again, I cannot score it more than once. The only exception to that is when you get a Yahtzee. A Yahtzee is where you get all the numbers the same. So if I roll 5 6s, I can put in here a Yahtzee. And a Yahtzee is worth 50 points, so I'd put a 50. Now, if a Yahtzee bonus, they say later in the game, I roll and I get all 3s. So I get 5 3s up here. And I get 5 3s. Then I can check a box here to say more Yahtzee bonus. So I can get Yahtzee 3 more times. That's very highly unlikely, but I could. So if I get, for every other Yahtzee I get then, it's going to be another 100 points. So let's just do another roll here and see what we can get. Okay, so I have a couple 6s, a couple 4s, and a 5. So one of them is a full house. Now if you know your poker, a full house is where you have 3 of one and 2 of another. So I have 2s and 2, so I'm really just going for another one here. There we go, I've got it. So I've got 3 4s, 2 5s, so I score 25 points here. Now, let's just say I have a terrible roll and say this is my final roll. I have 1, 3, 4, 6, 5. Really nothing great there. So because there was nothing great in this one, what I might do is I might just say, okay, I'm going to put my ones, I'm going to put a 0. Well, actually, I guess I have a 1. I can put 1, 1. But at any point, if I wanted to, well, say my 1s was already done. Say I had 4 1s at one point. I put them in there. I have no 2s here. I could just say I'm going to put 0 in my 2s. You always have to write down something on your board here, even when it's a 0. So you have to, sometimes you're going to push your luck and find that it's no good, but it might be worth your while. Like instead of just saying, well, I've got a 6, I can put a 6 here. Even one more 6 is 12 points. You doubled your points, so you may not want to waste that 6 with just only one 6. So you might just say, I'm going to take my 0 here, because it's not going to be, if I would need 5 2s for the maximum, and that's only 10 points. So it's really not that many points. Once you have filled up the thing, so if I had 9, 12, 10, and 12, you add up all the things in here, so 4, 13, 25, 35, 47, and then you get a bonus if your score is 63 or more, which 63 being an interesting number, so I don't get that. So my total for the top is 47, and say I had here 9, I had 4 5s for 20, and I didn't get that one. And so at any point too, say I had this roll and I had nothing else to do with it, 6 6 is 12, 16, 19, 22. You can, at one point, you can always just add up all 5 dice for the chance score down here. So for 22, I add all that up, and that would be my total score. So everybody's going to keep rolling until their scorecard is completely full. Once the scorecard is full, you add up the points, and you find out who has the highest points. The highest points is the winner. And that, in a nutshell, is how you play Yahtzee. So looking at the report card for Yahtzee, I'm going to give the number of players an A+. I give it the A+ because once you've bought the game, you have the rules, you have the scorecards and everything like that that you need. The only really thing that you would need in order to, well, for one, it says on the box itself that you can play 1+ players. So you could play this game solo. There's nothing to stop you from playing a solo game of Yahtzee. And you could play literally any number of players that you want, as long as everybody has their own scorecards. Now, you could just be sharing that one set of dice around and everybody takes a turn, in which case it could take a very long time. But it's just 5 dice. So you could, again, either everybody has their own set of dice and everybody says, okay, do your first roll. And everybody does their first roll. Okay, do your second roll. Or you could have maybe groupings and groups of people sharing a set of dice. So there's different ways to go about it, but once you have the rules, once you have the scorecards, those are the only sort of copywritten materials. Like, I wouldn't recommend just photocopying the rules and sharing them, because that's illegal and shouldn't do that. But once you have bought the game and have those scorecards and everything, then getting more sets of dice, I mean, dice are just dice, you could literally have a whole class playing at the same time. You just have to trust that everybody's going to play fairly and no cheating. So for learning for Yahtzee, I'm going to give the game a B+. This game is a math game. I mean, there's a lot of math that happens in this game. This math so simple as even just counting, where you're counting how many sets you have of whatever. So how many 3s did I roll? How many 4s? And you can maybe even count the pips on the dice to get the number to see how many totals you have if you're looking for a total. So there's just things that simple. You also have subitizing, and subitizing is the skill where you look at a dice and without having to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and count all the pips, you look at the 5 and you know that's a 5. Like I look at this, I see a 6, a 4, a 5, a 5, a 5, a 1, a 3, a 4, a 3, a 4, a 1. I don't need to count. I know just by looking at it. That's the skill of subitizing. And so and dice are perfect tools for that, because dice have those very familiar, very recognizable patterns of the arrangement of the pips on the faces that people just know by looking at it. That's a 5 because it has the 2, one in each corner and then one in the middle. That makes the 5. So then it has your addition skills, because as you're scoring up your points, you're going to maybe be adding the dice together to find out what your score is for a particular category, or you are going to be adding up totals along that scorecard to find out how many points you have in the upper and the lower sections, and then your overall scores. So I mean, there's like a lot of that addition, and again, that's something I remember as a child, was practicing my addition facts and being encouraged by my parents to, no, you can add that. They would double check my work because I was quite young when we were playing, but the fact was that I was encouraged to add, and there was mathematics involved. And as when I was at that age, I was so had no confidence and no interest in math. I really did not like math, but this is a game I do remember playing, and as I think back on it now, this is a game I didn't resist playing because it was math. I didn't even think about the math that was in it. I was just enjoying the game. So again, it's one of those ways to practice the math skills in a fun way that people are not going to be so resistant to as if you're just giving them a worksheet or, you know, whatever it is, flashcards and things. For fun, I'm going to give the game a B. Yahtzee is a classic for a reason. Because it's a fun game. There's a lot of, you know, strategy in it, because you can be thinking about what dice you have, what you need, what you could be going for, where and when to be putting numbers into those spots. Like I said in the playthrough, there's times where you could be just choosing to just use the dice and say, I'm going to put a 0 in this spot because I'm hoping for something better in one of those other spots. There's, you know, looking at the probabilities of things and all this risk taking and chance and fun. And one thing I love about the game too is, unlike some other games where you can look at something and say, okay, well, I can see that this person is, you know, I'm having to give something to this person. Each person has their own tableau that they're working towards. So you're kind of focusing in your own tableau, and maybe if you do it in such a way too that, you know, nobody's looking at each other's tableaus, then each person can even just be trying for their own personal best, and, you know, so it doesn't have to be as competitive until you get to the end and then you see the scores. But I love that fact that you have your own thing. And one thing I love in a game is just difficult decision making. Just sometimes those decisions of which dice am I using, which dice am I re-rolling, you know, which of those categories am I going for. A lot of really interesting things happening there, and so yeah, that's why I give this one a B. For time, I'm going to give the game an A. Yahtzee plays between 30 to 40 minutes, which is like a very, you know, fairly quick game, and it can be certainly played within a class period if you want to do it in a class. But what makes it exceptional for me is the fact that because the way it's played, and you're just playing to, you know, you make a roll, you write down your score, you make a roll, you write down your score every time, you could literally just sort of stop at any point and say, we're going to pick this up tomorrow, and know exactly where you left off because it's all written right down there. It's not like you have to set up a board again. It's not like you have to remember where the pieces were and the cards and the things and the positions of this, that. No, nothing like that. It's just pick it up again and go. And that's rare in a game. It's rare to be able to see a game which you can just walk away from and come back to any length of time later and know exactly where you were. I mean, you could literally do it like 10 years later and know exactly where you were because it's right there written on the card. So for that reason, I give it the A. For cost, I'm going to give the game an A. This one is in like in a wooden box, and it's in a vintage collection set, and so this one's a little more expensive. But like I was saying, you could find this probably in some stores which, you know, sell, you know, your typical common classic board games relatively inexpensively. I would think like $20 or less. But then, like I say, if you just keep your eyes open, you could find it in a thrift store, I'm sure, and get your copy there. But then the other thing to consider is, like as I always say, is the replayability. And this is the kind of game which I think is very replayable and can be played over and over again. And it's also the number of players that can play at one time. The fact that it is unlimited number of players that can be playing at one time just makes it like, wow, you can get so much money's worth out of this in terms of how much entertainment you're getting for the number of people that you're getting for the cost of the game. That it's fantastic. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, I definitely think that it's a good value to get this game. All right, let me take you to my final thoughts. So for Yahtzee in a classroom setting or in an educational setting, whether you're doing it at home or some other place, I would say that Yahtzee is a good game to be including, if you're looking for a lesson to be including in, would be a probability lesson, where you can start to talk about the probabilities of things and what is the probability of rolling the numbers that you need in this case, and just this can be a launching point for discussions around probability. Whereas I think it would be better is just even as a game which students can play, maybe if they've done their work, as an indoor recess tool or something, where they can just have this game available to them and play and practice their skills. You know, and wouldn't that be wonderful to see kids practicing their math skills during the recess in such a way that they don't even feel like they're practicing their math skills? And that's what games are great for, is doing these kinds of things. So this one I would see maybe even as a center where you're doing some number skills and things, and just having the kids play a math game just because it's just a fun way to reinforce skills. So that way you're sure that everybody's playing it, because as the centers rotate through in different days, eventually all the class will have played it. Or, as I said, there's also that option of doing it as a class-wide thing, and everybody has their own scorecard, in which case you're just going to have to trust that people are doing things honestly. Right? So those would be the ways I would see doing this one in the class. My personal preference would probably be for the group work, because then it's just the students can check each other and help each other out, and just have the one set of dice going around and see where we get in the period. And that would be my personal choice for how to use it. So if you are new to the channel, then what I'm doing is I'm putting out videos on a weekly basis around topics of gamification, game-based learning, where I'm talking about how we can gamify our classrooms, make the learning more fun. I just think that's a wonderful way to learn. It's a way that I wish I'd learned more of when I was a kid. As I say, I played a lot of games when I was younger, and I think that it was through the play of games that a lot of my math skills and things finally kind of came together. The way I was learning in school did not work for me personally, and I think that I'm thankful for all the games I played, because that's where I felt that my math skills particularly came together at a young age. So I like to share what I'm learning about games like Yahtzee, like other games I review on the channel, talking about their educational components and elements and how they can be used in the classroom so that we may improve our pedagogy. If this sounds good to you, then please do remember to hit like and subscribe down below. It really does help the channel, and I'm very grateful for everybody who chooses to do that. And even that little bell icon in the corner, which lets you know when new content is coming out, which, like I said, is on a weekly basis. If you have any ideas for things you might like to see on the channel, be it more games or books for discussion, people to interview, topics of discussion, leave me that message in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to respond. And that is going to wrap it up for today's episode. Until next time, I am Craig Thompson Wood, your host on Teaching with Board Games, saying thanks for coming to the classroom.
Are you coming back to school with me?